aligned federal campaign. By designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037, you help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Q. A judge is considering whether or not to drop the charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Eric Shawn reports.
Federal Judge Dale Ho said he did not want to shoot from the hip as he is considering the Trump Justice Department's push to scuttle the case. Yesterday in court, acting Deputy Attorney General Emile Beauvais argued that Adams fighting the charges of bribery, fraud, and foreign campaign contributions, well, he says they are interfering with the mayor's duties in City Hall. Critics accuse Adams and President Trump of making a deal, of dropping the federal charges in exchange for Adams carrying out Trump's immigration policies. But the mayor and the president deny that. Well, after court, Beauvais issued a statement saying prosecutors who don't agree with him, well, they can quit.
Hamas handed over the bodies of 4 murdered Israeli hostages who were killed in captivity. And this was how the so-called peaceful Palestinian civilians were reacting. Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich says it wasn't just Hamas terrorists involved in murdering innocents. It was Palestinian civilians as well.
Well, it's just a stark and terrible reminder of why this war started on October 7th. You had not Hamas terrorists necessarily kidnapping this beautiful family, but civilians who, when the gates of Gaza were broken down by the terrorists, they entered looking for looting opportunities and found this family and kidnapped them and took them back to the Gaza Strip and held them hostage for 500 plus days. If you look at the ages of these children, one of them is obviously a baby, one is a toddler.
Mike Huckabee is President Trump's nominee for ambassador to Israel. He says these people are savages.
Just heartbreak for this family who had to wait over 500 days to know the disposition of their loved ones. And then when they find out, their bodies come home in coffins that were locked by Hamas, and they handed keys to the Red Cross, but the keys did not fit the coffins. I mean, it's just another insult to injury. And then parading these coffins through a large crowd of cheering people was just another insult to injury. Mm-hmm. These people have no bounds of decency, none whatsoever.
A bill to prevent taxpayer funds from being used to pay for genital mutilation procedures on people in the Department of Corrections is now passed the Kentucky Senate. Bronson Woodruff has more.
AFN talked with Nick Spencer, Director of Policy for the Family Foundation of Kentucky.
So Senate Bill 2 prevent taxpayer funds from being used to pay for medication or surgeries for individuals in the State Department of Corrections who desire to try and change their gender.
He said this came about because Governor Andy Beshear tried to implement the policy via memo that would allow the Department of Corrections to provide these sorts of treatments.
Obviously, there was quite a bit of outrage about that, and the GOP majority in the state Senate, there's been a companion bill that's been introduced in the House, but this is sort of the way that they are pushing back against that. So SB 2 and its companion bill in the House, House Bill number 5, would prevent taxpayer funds from being used to pay for those sorts of procedures, specifically for individuals who are in the Department of Corrections.
Spencer said his team at the Family Foundation obviously would love to see this expanded to say that no taxpayer funds can be used for these sorts of treatments anywhere in the state for any person.
We don't think that the taxpayer should be footing the bill for this sort of thing. But we do believe that this gets the conversation going in the right direction, and it's a continued step in the effort to push back against transgender ideology that has taken over much of the United States.
He said the bill originated in the Senate. It will now go through the House of Representatives. If it passes the House, it goes to Governor Beshear's desk, where he can sign it into law. If he vetoes it, it can then only become law if the House and Senate both vote to override the governor. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
Officials urge people to stay off the roads today in parts of Virginia and North Carolina, where a storm dropped heavy snow and caused hundreds of accidents. The storm had already dropped snow in the Midwest and spread to the Tennessee and Ohio valleys and into places that are just starting to clean up after a weekend of deadly floods. More news available online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Keith.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Welcome to today's issues. Join us for the next hour as we offer a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome, everybody. I'm Ed Vitagliano, sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Ed.
And because all the Wildmans are out, I dragged a Vitagliano in, my son Tony Vitagliano. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And then from the deep places, the deep recesses of the frozen tundra from Kansas City, of all places, Dr. Ray Pritchard, the always effervescent Dr. Ray Pritchard. Good morning to you, Ray.
Hey, good morning, Ed. Hello from Kansas City, where, basically, Ed, everything has gone downhill since the Super Bowl. I mean, everything we've just gone straight downhill since then.
I was going to say, he's still wearing his head covering with the ashes on his face. He's still in mourning. You can't. Those of you who are joining us by video, you'll be able to see that. But
yeah, we've been in mourning, and the weather has just gone haywire. It was -9 a little bit earlier this morning.
Wind chill factor, though, we should say.
No.
Real, the real temperature?
The real temperature.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
Well, why is I'm all right, I'm a little geographical ignorance I'm showing here. I know roughly where Kansas is.
Right.
Almost dead center in the country.
Right.
Why is it so cold? I mean, we're not talking about Minnesota or North Dakota or Montana.
This is Fred. This is Canada cold. Okay.
Yeah, parts, right?
Yeah, the southern parts of Canada.
Yeah.
They talk about that. I can't explain it, but that polar vortex has come dropping down out of Canada into North Dakota, where it should stay, South Dakota, where it should stay, Nebraska, where it should stay. It's gone south of us down into Oklahoma and Texas. So
wow,
we got about
9 degrees below zero. For some reason, I was thinking that was just with wind chill, but that's serious cold for any part of the country.
It's just no good.
Well, and you're forced, since you still ride your bike a lot, I guess. Now you got to work on the treadmill or something, or what?
I have an indoor bike, which I never ride. I've been riding it this week. Okay,
had to throw the laundry off of it. Had to clean it off a little bit. Yeah,
exactly right.
All right, Fred, let's get started on the news of the day.
Well, I thought we would talk about the big game tonight.
Yes, Team USA against Team Canada, the two.
Here we go.
Well,
me and Brandon are looking at each other.
You missed the story meeting this morning. Brent's already been rolling his eyes. There is a news tie into it.
Absolutely.
But this is a big hockey game.
Yes.
Between we explained this earlier in the week. And Tim's out, so listen, I'm in charge here, and Fred and I. So I just got my mic just got muted. Well played, Brent Creed. So the National Hockey League typically will have an All-Star break this time of year, but instead what they did is 4 national teams drawing on the players who are in the National Hockey League.
Yes.
Are competing.
Yes.
And it's now down. There was Team USA, Team Canada, Team Finland, and Sweden.
Yes.
And so hockey players, some of them from the same team, go to opposite all-star teams.
Yeah, so when last they met, Canada and the USA teams last week, I think most people, even if you're not a hockey fan, this became a major news story. The Canadian audience in Montreal booed when the U.S. national anthem was sung by a Canadian military guy.
And by the way, I've watched hockey since I was 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never seen a national anthem booed.
Yeah, and that was terrible.
Right.
As a resident Canadian, that's shameful that would happen. Allowing politics to get into what was going to be a great hockey game.
Yes, and this is because of the comments that President Trump has made
Yes.
about Canada becoming the 51st state.
Yes, for which he hasn't apologized. We'll get into that in a moment. And then, of course, within the first 9 seconds of that game, we had boxing matches all over the place.
3 fights in 9 seconds.
Yes. So tonight, the game, Canada and USA go at it again, but it's in Boston.
Right.
All right. So I hope there is no booing in any on either side.
It would be equally wrong. I hope the Boston, well, there'll be fans from all over watching the game, not just Boston, but I hope the crowd behaves themselves.
Yes. Now, the general manager for the U.S. Four Nations team, who's running this, his name is Bill Guerin, I believe it is.
I think that's right.
He invited President Trump to come to the game tonight in Boston. President Trump said he'd like to be there, but he's a bit busy. He's speaking to governors.
Right.
However, in response to the invitation, let me tell you what President Trump had to say. I'll be calling our great American hockey team this morning to spur them on towards victory tonight against Canada, which with far lower taxes and much stronger security will someday, maybe soon, become our cherished and very important 51st state, he wrote.
Listen, civil wars are terrible. So when Canada broke away, states against states is an awful thing.
Well, listen, I do want to now Montreal fans are a whole different thing.
Yeah,
okay, in other words, the hockey fans in Quebec and especially in Montreal, they're a different breed. Generally speaking, Canadians, and I mentioned this last week, I think, that I remember a game. I don't remember where it was, but the microphone went out when someone. If the two teams are playing and one's from Canada and one's from the U.S., they sing both national anthems.
Yes, which is great.
And this was in a Canadian city. The microphone went out when the young lady, I think, was singing the U.S. American national anthem, and the Canadian crowd sang it.
Yes,
on her behalf. It was a wonderful thing. That's normally the way things go.
Yes.
In the National Hockey League. Tony, I love your Trump imitation.
Not one of my best.
It's a little nerves.
Yeah.
You know, when you do it
That's
right here,
on
when
air.
millions can listen.
Millions of people.
But this is when I was growing up. You know this because we've used this word. My mom would use the word scutch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was I'm teasing my sister.
I use that word
and
with my kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
You're being a scutch. You're being a tease. Stop it. Okay. Yeah. I got to think that this is what Trump is doing. He's being a scutch. He's being a tease. I don't think anybody on the planet thinks Canada would ever become America's 51st state. So I think he's doing it to light off the fireworks.
Oh, he loves to throw a little red meat into any arena, and that's just Trump being Trump.
Yeah. Well, Ray, I know you're a huge hockey fan.
Oh, sure.
Are you
I watched The Miracle on Ice back in 1980.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Listen, and that's a great movie too with Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. I watch that usually once a year. You going to watch the game tonight?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as far as Canada being the 51st, I agree with you. They're going to have to be the 52nd because Greenland is going to be 51, and then Canada is next. You never know with Mr. Trump, right?
No.
You literally, which is part of the reason he says these, outrageous things?
Yeah.
To just to stir things up a little bit.
Oh, he's a pot stirrer, that's for
Yes,
sure.
he is.
And I got to say, after 4 years of Joe Biden, admittedly low energy, okay, President Trump, this is I don't know. This is like the remember in school last day before Christmas break we had Christmas parties. I don't know if you guys did when I was growing up.
Right.
We had a Christmas party before you broke for the holiday, and the energy was always sky high. And every day I get up, and that's what it's like. I wonder what President Trump did last night. So
it's amazing. Well, speaking of words from President Trump, words have broken out again with regards, and this has to do with Ukraine. We know that during the election campaign, President Trump said, gets into office, major priority is to end this war between Russia and Ukraine. Well, we had meetings in the last week. You remember our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, met with representatives of Russia. Trump has had discussions with a phone call with Putin, talking about how do we end this. He had a phone call with Zelensky of Ukraine also. However, Zelensky has taken great exception to the meeting, I think it was in Saudi Arabia, back a few days ago, between Marco Rubio and Russian representatives. There was nobody from Ukraine at that particular meeting. Well, Zelensky has grown quite upset about that. He had things to say about Trump. He attacked Trump, accusing him of living in a Russian-made, quote, disinformation space. Well, if you thought that President Trump would not respond to that, think again. Here's a little bit about how Trump has responded to those accusations. Cut number one.
The only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia.
And so there's a lot of media reaction to this morning as far as, okay, what's going on here? How can we end a war when one side now, in this case, Zelensky, is throwing those barbs? It sounds like President Trump is really upset with Zelensky. But this morning on Fox and Friends, Mike Waltz, who is the National Security Advisor, tried to put things in perspective as to what is going on right now with regards to trying to bring about a peace in this horrible, horrible war. Cut number 6.
There's obviously a lot of frustration here. Vice President Vance was very frustrated leaving the Munich Security Conference. Our Secretary of Treasury, who traveled all the way to Kyiv, is also frustrated, all on top of the president, obviously, who makes his frustration well known. And that's because we presented the Ukrainians really an incredible and historic opportunity to have the United States of America co-invest with Ukraine, invest in its economy, invest in its natural resources, and really become a partner in Ukraine's future in a way that's sustainable, but also would be, I think, the best security guarantee they could ever hope for, much more than another pallet of ammunition.
So basically, what Mike Wallace is saying here, the United States has invested a couple of $100 billion in helping Ukraine in their fight against Russia. And what Mike Wallace is saying is that the President Trump, has laid out for Zelensky, this is what we would like to do. We want to see the end of the war. You're going to have to make some compromises. And by the way, we'd like to invest in the Ukrainian economy. We like your natural resources, et cetera, et cetera. But as you have mentioned, Ed, many times, Trump has his way of negotiating, and it doesn't always seem like he's throwing out nice words. It is almost provoking people to come to the table, to come to some kind of compromise.
Well, Tony, I'll start with you, and then Ray will get your take on this. Listen, I just want to say, my own personal opinion, AFA, by the way, folks, doesn't have an opinion on the Ukraine war. We don't have an official opinion, is what I'm saying. You may hear different takes on the Ukraine war and where it should go from here on different shows. In fact, we're going to have Jenna Ellis on here after the bottom of the hour break. We're going to get her take on what's happening over there. So when I say we don't have an official take, AFA exists to deal with cultural issues here in the United States. We don't have an official AFA foreign policy is what I'm saying. So, Tony, back to you. My personal opinion is what Russia did was horrific, invading another country, taking territory. They had their justifications. Tens of thousands have died on both sides. Okay. However, the reality on the ground is, as far as I can tell, Russia's not backing out. They're going to keep, it looks like they're going to keep the eastern portions of Ukraine, the Donbass region, Crimea. They're going to keep that. And that may have political fallouts with Europe and the United States. But in terms of Ukraine, of the war ending, somebody has got to try to get these two sides together. I have no idea what Putin wants to do. Zelensky's making his position perfectly clear. He apparently wants Russia out, and he wants the United States and Europe to go to war with Russia. That's what it seems like to me, that ultimately could, because he knows Ukraine can't push them out.
Yeah.
And President Trump said during his campaign, he said, I'll have it done in 24 hours.
Yeah.
That was, I think, typical Trump hyperbole. He wants to end it. I'm not sure Zelensky has any choice in the matter.
Yeah, so, we talked about this a little bit on Monday. Trump approaches his approach to even foreign policy is kind of using, to use the example again, the art of the deal. He takes that same approach to foreign policy as he does with making business deals.
Right.
So in order to come to the table and make a deal with someone, if you want a favorable deal, if you want some of your demands or concessions met, then you have to have leverage. You have to have something to bring to the table. I'll use this example. If you go to a car dealership and you want to get a good deal on a car, if you come to the table with the car dealer and you say, I have terrible credit. I don't have any money for a down payment, but I want a good deal on this vehicle. I want you to cut the price $5,000. The car dealer is going to look at you and be like, I'm sorry, you don't have anything. You don't have any, there's no incentive for me to give you that deal. So the way Trump is viewing the Russia-Ukraine conflict right now and Zelensky's position is that Zelensky, it's just the facts. Zelensky has very little to any leverage that he can bring to the negotiating table with Russia. His only leverage is relying on the U.S. to be the big man standing behind Zelensky while he's talking with Putin and trying to make a deal with the Russians. If the U.S. is telling you, and it sounds like this is the direction Trump is going, and you definitely, as a foreign leader, don't want to start throwing barbs at Trump because you get on his bad side real quick.
Right.
If the U.S. is telling you, look, it's time, we're not going to give you any money, especially we're not going to give you any more money if you're refusing to back up what we've given you already, Zelensky has no leverage. I mean, it's just it's sad. I hate what's happened to the country of Ukraine. I hate what has happened to the people of Ukraine, because there are a lot of people who are suffering, and in my opinion, have suffered needlessly for a few years now. I think Trump is just looking at this realistically, and he's saying, if this was a business deal, Ukraine has nothing to offer, so they're going to have to make concessions. And they're either going to have to make concessions to the U.S. or they're going to have to make concessions to Russia or lose their country. It's like Trump said. I mean, Russia will continue to advance until a deal is met that is favorable to them.
Yeah. Ray, I've changed my kind of foreign policy views over the decades. I used to be a hawk, okay, back when communism was a force in terms of the Soviet Union. I was in favor of the Vietnam War. I know the Chinese are communists. They're a new and kind of not new. They've been China's been communist since 1949, but it's a little bit of a different issue than the Soviet Union. But as the years have gone by, especially after 20 years of us fighting wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and the Middle East in general, and nothing really changing, I've reversed course on a lot of these earlier positions. And, you know, having a son and now grandkids, you know, I had no skin in the game, you know, in Vietnam. And now I go, listen, it better be for good reason that we go to war. And I have the feeling that there are people in this country, people in Europe, and I think Zelensky, who want American boots on the ground. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want that. Now, none of us are foreign policy experts here, but we do have a vote. And I voted for Trump because, for one reason, he wanted to keep America out of wars.
Well, number one, if you have American boots on the ground in Ukraine, you're on the doorstep of World War III.
Yeah,
because you've put the American troops coming up against Russia, man for man, plane for plane, missile for missile. That cannot happen, right? It just cannot happen. And essentially, what Tony, everything you said sounded exactly right to me. We've got a case of asymmetric warfare here. I've been to Ukraine twice. Love the people. Brave, strong, resilient nation. And a lot of Christian friends over there in Ukraine. But it's not a fair fight because Mr. Putin and the folks in Russia, they can do what they're doing now for 10 more years. Ukraine cannot hold out as long as Russia can hold out. So as to what the president said, I think it's exactly right. He intended to stir the waters. He intended for it to sting. It's a message to Mr. Zelensky. It's time to end the war. And I hope that message gets through in Kyiv because it is time. It is time to end the war, and the Ukrainians have fought well, bravely. They've done better than I thought they would do against Russia, but the time has come. And it's going to either be where they do it on U.S. terms or do it on Russian terms. And it would be much better for the Ukrainians to do it on U.S. terms.
Well, let me toss this out to all three of you. Fred, I'll start with you. But Tony and Ray jump in here too. When President Trump first made this public, his position public, okay, everyone knew what he was saying to Zelensky. I thought maybe this should have stayed behind the scenes on the thing with the money and what we want back from Ukraine. And, I saw videos of members of, the Ukrainian military and so on and so forth saying, we don't owe you a cent. Okay. Now, true, the Biden administration gave that money without strings attached, but there's a new president.
Yes.
And he has a right to determine what foreign policy is. He has every right to say, first of all, no more money. No more good money chasing after bad in terms of changing the reality on the ground. But we want something in return.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the fact that Trump is saying we want access to the minerals or some percentage of it?
I think it's all part of the negotiations. I think, as Tony has already said, Ukraine cannot win this war. And with that in mind, Trump is a businessman.
Yeah.
So he said, we can't keep pouring American money into a business that is failing and is doomed to fail. Therefore, we have to find a solution to end this war. And part of that has to be because the American people have given $200, $300 billion into that Ukrainian war. We want something back. By the way, it will help the Ukrainian economy come back to life.
Yeah.
If we're buying some of your minerals, then that will help you get jobs back. And with Russia out of the picture as far as the war goes, you can not only survive, but you can perhaps even do very well.
Yeah.
But Trump has a way of doing business, and some of it is getting in people's faces.
Yeah.
To bring them to the table, to bring them to what Trump regards as a realization of the facts.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he is.
Well, Tony and Ray, sorry, we're going to have a little bit of discussion with Jenna after the break. If there's time, we may have some more on this subject. And let's not forget, multiple nations are going to have to help Ukraine rebuild.
That's right.
And if the U.S. is going to be pouring money in there to do that, we should have access to something coming our way as well. All right, short break. And when we come back, Jenna Ellis we'll be on. We'll talk a little bit more about what's happening in Europe. Hope you join us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ever want to quit? Did you ever want to hang 'em up and call it a game? If you haven't, then you aren't normal. Every normal person has periods when he's ready to throw in the towel. Several years ago, I charted a course for my life. I chose what I believed to be the highest and truest way of living. I gave myself to it, and I have pursued it. But there have been times when I have wanted to quit, to call it a game and hang up the togs. Quitting is tempting because it's easier. You know, when you get knocked down time and again, it's hard to get up and go another time. When it seems as though you're behind and can never catch up, it's awful hard to keep trying. Life is tremendously demanding if a person pledges himself to the best he knows. It becomes so difficult sometimes that the temptation to give up is very strong. The benefits of giving up seem appealing and attractive. I can understand why some people have given up. They grew tired of following their highest dream, and then they started demanding less and less of themselves. Finally, the dream was no more. A person needs a solid foundation if he attempts to follow the highest and best he knows, because when the storms of doubt and despair blast against our structure, it will crumble like dust if there isn't something solid underneath. As I write this, I'm tempted to give up, to quit on the direction I chose some years back. All the advantages of giving up are looming out before me like water to a person dying of thirst. How strong the desire to quit. But I will not quit. I can't, because I know that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished by quitting. I will never accomplish all I would like to, but I will accomplish nothing if I give up. And back there when I made my decision, I wasn't promised peaches and cream. The one I follow was crucified. Why did I think following him should be easy? No, I made my vow to be faithful. And that's all he desires of me. Not to be successful, not to be popular. One thing he desires of me, to be faithful. And you know, I can do that. I can be faithful. I can hang in there and give the best I have. I will be a better person by doing that, and stronger. And by doing so, I can help another who is struggling to stay above water. Quit? Sure, I want to quit. How easy life would be if I just call it a game and run away. But I will not do that, no matter how great the temptation. He is depending on me to be faithful. And that's the one thing I can and will do. I will not disappoint him. I will be faithful. So, give me a drink of the living water. I'm ready to get back into the game of life.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Matthew 19:14.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
And welcome back. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. I'm joined by Fred Jackson, Tony Vitagliano, and Dr. Ray Pritchard. And now we're joined by the inestimable Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, heard at 7 a.m. Central Time on American Family Radio, and host of the On Demand podcast found at afr.net. And by the way, at afr.net, if you go to the top list of the banners, there's a banner for podcasts. You click on that, a window opens up, and you can not only get the On Demand podcast, which is an in-depth look by Jenna at some of the issues of the day, but you can go back and listen to previous shows perhaps you missed, because she always has great guests and great insight on the things that are happening. So, Jenna, welcome back to Today's Issues.
Thank you so much for having me. And I was concerned just for a split second there when you took a while to characterize inestimable. I was going, how is he going to introduce me this time?
Well,
but
yeah.
That's okay.
And, I'm not sure whether that's as I think back on it, I'm not sure that's a compliment or an insult. If you're inestimable, does that mean you're highly esteemed, or we just can't figure out what you're worth?
Probably a little bit of both, and I think that's okay because I'm no stranger to controversy for standing up for truth, and I'm okay. But it's kind of like invaluable, where that almost make it seems like you don't have value, but it's just like you can't quantify it. So
yeah, that's right.
So
what'd you find, Tony?
All right, so inestimable. I had to look it up.
Yes.
Too great to calculate.
There you go.
So you landed on the right side of that one.
All right.
Irregardless.
That should be my tagline.
Irregardless.
Irregardless. That should be the tagline of On Demand. Too great to calculate.
There you go. All right. Well, Jenna, we wanted to talk a little bit about the situation in Ukraine. Fred, why don't you set that back up for Jenna? People have heard enough of my voice. Just what has happened in the last 24 hours or so.
Yeah, it's the exchange of words between Zelensky and Trump. Trump basically referring to Zelensky as a dictator. You should be holding elections. Even accused him kind of starting the war. And, Zelensky has responded to all of that, saying that basically Trump is just carrying water for Putin. So nasty words back and forth. Where do you think it's going to lead, Jenna?
Well, I think Zelensky is going to have a really hard time staying in this conflict when President Trump very clearly campaigned on helping facilitate a resolution, and he is fulfilling that campaign promise. And I think he's absolutely right that this whole conflict wouldn't have even started had Biden not been in the White House for 4 years. But it's interesting to see these barbs going back and forth. And it also broke maybe an hour or so ago that apparently Truth Social is now unable to be accessed in Ukraine. So not sure if Zelensky is behind that and doesn't want Ukrainians to see what Trump is posting on his Truth Social platform. But overall, I don't think that there's any truth to the allegation that we've heard for years from the left that, Trump is just a puppet of Putin. Any of that nonsense. I think he's very clearly America first. But I think he's absolutely right that the other European countries haven't really had a seat at the table, nor have they wanted to. They haven't had any sort of buy-in. They've sort of just let this alone. And with the United States sending so much money to Ukraine and so much of it is unaccounted for, that has kind of been our buy-in. And I think that it's absolutely reasonable for the American people to expect Trump to help facilitate a solution here. And frankly, I kind of want our money back. I mean, or at least know where it's going. I think it's just been totally irresponsible of even the Republicans in Congress who signed off on that.
Tony?
Yeah, I also think that what part of our position should be is if Zelensky wants to remain in this conflict, he's going to have to start pivoting towards Europe. And Trump, if Trump pulls our support off the table, I think Zelensky will have, which is why you're starting to see him kind of throw shade at Trump, because he knows that European leaders aren't the biggest fan of Trump and his foreign policy. But if the U.S. aid is pulled off the table to a degree, or even drastically or altogether, maybe, I think you're going to see this pivot towards Europe, and you're going to find out real quick how willing Europe is to support and ensure that Zelensky and Ukraine stay in this conflict for as long as possible, especially since they're going to be the ones footing the bill. I've even seen, I think it was Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister for the UK, is still pitching this idea of having British troops, having European troops in Ukraine, peacekeeping troops, which we all know how what peacekeeping troops end up turning into. So Zelensky is not in a good position, and I wouldn't want to be in his shoes.
What do you think,
Yeah.
Jenna?
Yeah, I agree with that completely, and I think he's recognizing that, and that's part of this kind of backlash and maybe temper tantrum throwing at President Trump, who clearly is the adult in the room. And, let's not forget that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is a really key player in all of this, and part of that envoy that the United States is sending to help facilitate these discussions. And, he has been very clear as one of 2 GOP senators that didn't vote on the last aid package in Ukraine while he was still in the Senate, primarily because it didn't have any sort of immigration issues and border security, things that are actually America first. So I don't think that he's going to do anything less than represent the full-throated position of Trump. So I think we are going to see some solutions to this conflict. But, the interesting thing to me as well, just as an aside, as an American who, is a taxpayer and we're seeing all of our funding go to this conflict, it's really weird to see, unlike the conflict in the Middle East, where we have all of these almost daily stories, the reporting, the terrorism that's going on with Hamas, we're not seeing that same kind of footage and reporting coming out of Ukraine and this whole conflict. And that's just from a journalistic standpoint, that's really interesting to me to kind of question, what's really going on here and what's perhaps the motivations of Zelensky wanting to still remain in something that, he's terming as a necessary conflict.
Jenna, you had mentioned earlier about we have no idea where the money is going, how it's being used. Listen, we had enough trouble with the money going to our own forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. We all know how the extraction from Afghanistan worked out, with billions of dollars basically falling into the laps of the Taliban. But the mood of the country has shifted dramatically. Now, I can't get in the heads of everyone who voted for Donald Trump, but this idea of reining back spending was in the mix. It probably wasn't as high as immigration and inflation and those kinds of things, but the very idea that we are giving hundreds of billions of dollars to a country with no accounting. I don't know whether Zelensky has $2 or $3 billion tucked away somewhere in the Caymans. I have no idea. Nobody does. And I think the mood of the country, as we're seeing with, I think, still a great deal of support for what Doge is doing, I just do not want to just give money to countries and say, hey, do whatever you think is best. I don't think the people want that. People are crying out for infrastructure investment and help in getting prices down and jobs. That's what they want. And I don't think Republicans or Democrats who want to toss more money in the direction of this war are going to get a lot of traction, publicly speaking. What do you think?
No, I 100% agree with that. And while maybe the focus and the top issues, were border control and and safe and secure elections, some of those things on the home front. Certainly, the administrative state and the outrageous spending and reducing taxes. I mean, that's all part of the Trump mandate, and I think that's more than just the American people voting Donald Trump in. I think that that's reflected in the Republican trifecta in Congress. That's reflected on the state level as well, with a lot of the Republican-controlled legislatures, the wildly popular nature of what Greg Abbott is doing in Texas, Ron DeSantis in Florida, other red state governors. So I think you're seeing kind of this this rise of a demand for accountability. And we should. I mean, it's a biblical principle to steward well not only our own resources individually, but especially if we are the stewards of others' resources, which is what the government is. I mean, they are a non-revenue generating institution.
Right.
And so any of the revenue that they have is from the American taxpayers. So they are stewarding our money, our property, that they are forcibly compelling us to give them to then spend on all of these other things that's not really a service to us as a consumer. but rather just to fund their own priorities. That's theft. That is being irresponsible. And so the biblical principle, I think, here demands accountability, and even people who are not Bible-believing Christians and conservatives, that principle is still moral, and they still understand the whole notion of private property. And I absolutely think that that's part of the Trump mandate.
All right, last question, and it's quick. You can give however long an answer you want. We're not even, I don't think, I don't necessarily math well, but I don't even think we're halfway through his first 100 days. How do you think President Trump is doing?
A+. And, we're exactly 20 days in. Today's February 20th, and so it was a month ago that he was inaugurated. And I loved what J.D. Vance said just about an hour ago at CPAC, that he thinks that the Trump administration has signed probably more executive orders than CNN has viewers. And I think that's totally apt. And I love it. And actually tomorrow on my morning show, I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive for the morning show on how we actually can return to the original intent of the U.S. Constitution and why these executive orders are important, why legislation is important, the state level is important. But really what the Trump mandate is calling for is what conservatives have been saying for a long time with the rise of the administrative state, is we have to get back to the original intent, which is the limited powers of the federal government. So looking forward to that conversation tomorrow morning.
I know I said just one question, but are you at CPAC?
I am not.
Okay.
Thankfully, I really have no interest in returning to D.C. or that area anytime soon. So I'm happy to be the peanut gallery from Florida.
There's going to be lots of good real estate opening up.
Yeah,
you can probably
that's true.
You probably get a good deal right now
if you wanted to. Move back there. All right, Jenna, we're going to let you go. I know you got other things going on, so thank you for being with us. And who do you got coming up? Kind of tease the show for tomorrow?
So tomorrow I'm going to be having that conversation about the original intent of the Constitution, returning to our founding principles with Mike Donnelly, who's a recurring guest, just a dear friend of mine, constitutional law professor and attorney. And then we'll also be talking about data privacy and children's rights with a VP from NetChoice tomorrow. And then On Demand tomorrow will be out, and that will be a full-throated conversation about discernment in the Christian perspective with Ryan Helfenbein, who's the VP of Communications at Liberty University, and how Christians need to navigate, while we're championing a lot of this that is going on with Trump, where are the opportunities for Christians, and how do we maintain our discernment having Christ as the standard? That's going to be a deep dive On Demand tomorrow.
Good. Sounds great. Thank you, Jenna.
Thanks, guys.
That is Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, heard weekdays, Monday through Friday, at 7 a.m. Central Time on American Family Radio. We do encourage you to go to afr.net, click on the podcast at the top, and you will see another window open up. You can not only access past programs that Jenna has had, but also her on-demand podcast, which is, she explained, a deep dive into a particular subject. So check that out on afr.net. Fred?
Well, let's go to Israel. Everybody is aware there's been a ceasefire in place between Hamas and Israel. And we have seen over the last 2 or 3 weeks incidents where some of the hostages have been released. Well, there was a horrible scene this morning when the bodies, underlined bodies, of 4 hostages were returned to the Israelis. And it was a horrible scene because those bodies include a mom and 2 of her little children who were taken hostage back there in October 7th, 2023. But what I want you to hear is how Hamas and the Palestinians responded as these coffins were returned to the Israelis. Cut number 8.
Hamas. Explain what we're hearing.
Hamas and the Palestinians were celebrating. As these coffins were being turned over, they were celebrating
their deaths.
What they consider a victory.
Yeah.
A victory. And Fox, shortly after all of this happened, Fox talked with former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who is President Trump's nominee to be our ambassador to Israel. Here's how he responded, cut 9.
I mean, it's just another insult to injury. And then parading these coffins through a large crowd of cheering people was just another insult to injury. These people have no bounds of decency, none whatsoever. And Hamas has really demonstrated in every single day why they cannot remain in any part of control, not just of Gaza, but anywhere, Dana. They just are savages.
Now, if you get your news from legacy media, they attempt to separate Hamas from the Palestinians in Gaza. Same thing in the West Bank.
Right.
That these, now I'm not saying there aren't Palestinians who would like peace.
And there are, I always like to say, there are Palestinian Christians
Yes.
as well.
Yes. However, what we have seen and what Mike Huckabee and others have tried to point out over and over again, that the idea of a two-state solution, we had Mike Huckabee on this program back a month or so ago.
Yeah.
The idea of a two-state solution where two peoples living in peace, the Palestinians, Hamas, and the terrorists who live in the West Bank have shown us over and over again, they don't want peace with Israel.
Right.
And so has, Mike Huckabee and others are saying what has to happen in Gaza cannot be Hamas allowed to regroup, which they are. It's amazing if you've been watching some of the videos during the ceasefire. They've regrouped already. They've recruited from these Palestinians. And so you can understand where Netanyahu is, and I know where President Trump is, that Gaza has to be wiped clean of Hamas. Otherwise, other words, we're going to have another October 7th, 2023 again.
That's right.
And so the idea that somehow, Israel, you just withdraw and everything will be hunky-dory again. That's not going to happen. And I hope, the American people, if you're watching and listening to the right news sources, understand they really don't want peace. They want Israel wiped off the face of the earth. That's what's going on.
Tony, one of the things that's difficult for us to understand, we certainly learned or should have learned this as a nation when we attempted to, what I always call, airdrop democracy into the Middle East and Afghanistan. It is difficult to fight an idea with weapons. And this is part of the problem for Israel, is there is no real separation between, as Fred's pointing out, between Hamas and Palestinians. Again, not all, we want to be careful, but a lot of the Palestinians in Gaza have been infected with hatred for Israel. That's why it would be very easy for Hamas to reconstitute itself and do this again. I'm not sure, other than the Lord's return,
right?
Okay, how you get rid of an idea that just won't die.
Yeah, I think this is why you saw such a vitriolic reaction, such a revulsion to Trump's proposed plan for Gaza, because I think, Benjamin Netanyahu expressed positivity towards it. You've had a mix between some of the Arab nations, but you've had a lot of the Western world and other Arab nations who recoiled at it, because I think everybody realizes, they know, the people who have supported Hamas and the Palestinians and the people who have opposed them know that that is an uprooting and a rebuilding of Gaza from the ground up is the only way you will ever have peace in that part of the Middle East, because it's just, folks, it's just history, all right? Anytime a nation comes in and conquers another nation, it happened to Israel multiple times, what happens? You scatter them. You don't leave the people there that you just conquered if they're a a resistant and ideological people, you scatter them. And if you want to get rid of the ideology and the violence that accompanies it, you've got to rebuild Gaza and scatter the people there who would just, like Fred said, put new roots down. As soon as you leave, they're just going to do the same thing. And I think that's why Trump's proposal, while it sounds outlandish, it is, to me, in my opinion, one of the it's going in the only direction that you can in order to have lasting peace there.
Well, Ray, it seems to me this is exactly the reason why none of the other Arab countries want these people coming to their country, because they'll bring the Hamas ideology with them. And then if you do not agree that Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth, then you've got a problem in your own country. And they could work to overthrow Jordan or Saudi Arabia or Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood was kicked out of Egypt for the very reasons Tony is saying here, is because Egypt did not want this radical ideology inside its own borders, because for these kinds of radicals, if you're not radical with us, you're part of the problem, and you're not a good Muslim. And that's why nobody wants these radicals. And I feel bad for a lot of those Palestinian people who are probably intimidated into silence. They're afraid for their own lives and for their own children, certainly the Palestinian Christians. But there's got to be a large segment of the Palestinian population in Gaza who have been brainwashed for decades, even before they had a nation or an area of themselves, the Gaza Strip.
That's an interesting word you use, brainwashing, because as you were talking before you said it, that was what was coming into my mind. That the audio that Fred played just a moment ago, I mean, that's what mass brainwashing looks like. That's what it is. So I step over to the Israeli side. Imagine you are an Israeli citizen and you see that video. Okay. There was among those returned, as Fred said, there was a mother and 2 children taken alive, returned dead, and the people are cheering in the streets about it, which tells us, among other things, that the leaders of Hamas have learned absolutely nothing. Yeah, they've learned absolutely nothing since October the 7th. For all the destruction that's been done in Gaza and all the buildings torn down and the people who've died, they have learned absolutely nothing. So we haven't even mentioned the 2-state thing, because that's dead. That's gone. I don't know if it will ever come back, but for the moment, it is completely dead. So how do you square the circle, guys? I mean, if you're Jordan, if you're Egypt, if you're any other country, why would you want to take people in from Gaza who have been infected with this contagion of radical Islamic theology to cheer the return of dead bodies to Israel? Something is wrong in the minds and hearts of those people. So I don't know. Tony, you're right. It's like the Jews got spread to the nations, right? I mean, it's exactly right. How are you going to convince any country, I don't care whether it's Sierra Leone or Paraguay or Thailand, some country far away, what country anywhere is going to want to take in the Palestinians when they see a video like we are seeing today?
Well, and you know what? Listen, I've never been in war, okay? I can at least conceive of being happy that your opponent across the battlefield's dead.
Sure.
Okay. Man to man, okay.
Sure.
World War II, a bazooka round takes out a machine gun nest. I'm cheering. The Nazis are dead. Okay.
Right.
But what kind of depravity is in play when you are cheering the death of a mother and 2 children?
Exactly.
They're not combatants. They are part of a group that you hate, from the youngest to the oldest, from the left to the right. No matter who they are, if they're Jewish, they deserve to be dead, because they're all dogs. That's the way this radical ideology views them. That kind of depravity with a dead mother and children is far beyond just battlefield pleasure at the death of your enemies. So
keep praying for Israel and
yes,
that part of the world.
Folks, we're going to take a 5-minute break for news, and we will be right back.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today, just see it this morning? All the odds against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit AFA.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The Senate is set to vote on whether to confirm Kash Patel as FBI director. Patel cleared the Senate Judiciary Committee last week by a 12-10 party line vote and is now set for consideration by the Republican-controlled Senate. Patel is expected to be confirmed unless more than 3 Republican senators defy Trump's will and vote against him, which is seen as unlikely. President Trump campaigned on a platform of hiring Elon Musk, establishing Doge, and shrinking the federal government by cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. The American people liked what they heard, and they gave Trump a broad electoral and popular vote mandate. Trump is now doing the unthinkable in Washington. He's doing exactly what he promised voters he'd do. So activist judges have been trying to stymie Trump at every turn. Counselor to the president, Alina Habba, says it's not going to work.
The president is used to being under siege with lawfare and radical left judges. This lawfare, frankly, is part of the reason I believe we won. I truly do. I think that it's desperate. I think that it is not in the interest of the American people. We will not be defying orders. We will fight them in court.
A Democrat congresswoman from Texas thinks she has it all figured out. The problem, according to Jasmine Crockett, is that all Trump voters are stupid and uneducated.
Just like the election, we've got to do better at education. People don't understand. You will understand as planes continue to fall out of the sky.
Former Democratic campaign fundraiser Evan Barker says Democrats will never learn that calling the majority of Americans stupid and uneducated is not a good strategy.
The reality is that Jasmine Crockett is one of the most divisive and toxic and out-of-touch members of Congress. And unfortunately, she represents a safe blue district. And so she feels emboldened to say what the majority of the Democratic Party really, really thinks. And that's that the American public who voted for Donald Trump, the majority of the American public, is stupid.
A California pro-family group is celebrating the immediate impact of a President Trump order to end gender mutilation procedures on children.
Soon after President Donald Trump's executive order halting federal support for gender surgeries and drugs for minors, Children's Hospital of Los Angeles announced they are pausing such treatment. Greg Bird of the California Family Council.
Finally, we have an ally in the federal government to stop these terrible procedures, and hospitals realize they need federal funding and they're starting to lose. And so we rejoice over this.
Bird says a report showing that the gender-affirming procedures at Children's Hospital LA were detrimental to patients, a big medical scandal broke out.
This hospital has already been under a lot of scrutiny. And so, so it's very satisfying to see that they're finally being forced to start to make changes. And I hope that the federal government isn't just making idle threats.
I'm Bob Kellogg.
The Kendrick brothers have been a blessing to people with hit films such as Facing the Giants, Courageous, War Room, and The Forge. As Chris Woodward reports, the duo is now praying about its next projects.
Author and film producer Stephen Kendrick told AFN that he and his brother Alex have 3 projects that are in what they call the prayer incubator. We've already had a prayer retreat asking the Lord for clarity and direction. One of them is an episodic, which we've never done before. One of them is to reshoot a movie in a foreign language and use it to train up a film group in another country to make Christian films in that country. And then we're actually looking at a biblical story. We've never done that before either. Bottom line, Kendrick said that he and his brother Alex fear the Lord, and they want to honor and handle his word well. But prayer is the foundation for everything that we do. Please pray for us. Pray for the Kendrick brothers and ask the Lord to give us clarity, open doors, provision. We want to take the gospel to the nations. We want to introduce people in a loving relationship with Christ and to follow him in his word. I'm Chris Woodward.
On Wall Street, the S&P 500 fell 0.6% in morning trading. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 439 points, and the Nasdaq Composite sank 0.7%. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
The feature-length documentary Culture Warrior, Don Wildman and the Battle for Decency, premiering November 11th, chronicles the life and ministry of Don Wildman. It takes you through the founding of the National Federation for Decency, what has become AFA. It's a call to stand firm for righteousness and shows how that resolve can make a huge difference in our world.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Find out more and watch the trailer at culturewarrior.movie.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back, everybody. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. I'm joined in studio by Tony Vitagliano and Dr. Ray Pritchard out in Kansas, kind of hunkered down there with the freezing cold temperatures. Ray, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Keep Believing Ministry and your website and what you got going on there?
Well, let me tell you first the good news. In the hour we've been on the air, we've gone from below zero to 5 above. So
wow. Congratulations.
The heat wave is underway.
Shorts.
That's right.
Start peeling off your clothes. Well, I mean, your jackets never mind.
Work on your suntan.
I can't recover from that one.
I can't recover from that. All right. All right. So keep going. Yeah. Keep believing.
2 days ago on Tuesday, we talked about the Let's Read the Bible campaign, and I commented we were near the end of Leviticus. And Leviticus, of course, is Death Valley for most Bible reading plans because, it's all the sacrifices and offerings. Well, we're done with Leviticus, and today, on this day, we are jumping into the wonderful book of Numbers chapters 1, 2, and 3. That's at keepbelieving.com. If you stick with us, watch the videos, you'll go with us all the way through the Bible. And you know what, Ed? Leviticus is cool, but Numbers is even more fun. More fun than Leviticus. So, folks, come see us at keepbelieving.com and hop on the Bible bus and let's have a party in the book of Numbers.
And you do have other stuff there at keepbelieving.com.
Yeah, we got a lot of Bible study resources, video studies on books of the Bible, FAQs, just a lot of stuff. Come see us, friends.
And how much does it cost to access all that,
Ray? Zero. It's all free.
All right.
Every bit of it.
Good. Thank you, Ray. All right. We also have in studio Chris Woodward. Good morning / good afternoon, Chris, depending on where people are listening.
I got to tell you, whenever I get to Leviticus or Numbers or First Chronicles, you have to attack it with a I think I can attitude, and you'll get through it.
That's right.
Let me just kind of toss in here. My daughter, she has been doing really great with the Lord and always reading her Bible, and on her way to work, she'll call me with, Bible questions, and I'm usually in the car. So we have a kind of a little Bible study. She gets to work early so she can read her Bible, and I'm on the way to work. And she was reading in Leviticus, and she just said, "I just don't get. What am I supposed to get out of all this?" So one of the things I appreciate about Ray as they're going through the Bible, Ray does give insights and some outlines and give the folks some help in understanding what they're reading, because it's an obsolete covenant, so it's kind of history, but it's some hard going.
Finish each chapter with "Thank you, Jesus."
Yes, that's right.
Because of Jesus,
yes,
we're not bound.
We don't
to
have to do this.
That's
anymore.
what I meant. Right. I had to clarify that.
Yeah.
Put it in biblical context when I was
there
talking
you go.
about it.
All right, let's go to the news.
Yes, we have some breaking news regarding Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell. The Republican has announced today that he will not seek re-election in 2026, ending a long tenure as the Republican power broker. He announced last year that he would be stepping down as the Republican leader in the Senate. That kind of led people to wonder, is he going to call it a career here at the end of his term? And he did make it official today. ending a decades-long tenure as a power broker who championed conservative causes, but he's kind of had some run-ins of late with the Trump-Vance administration. Mitch McConnell has voted no at least 3 times on nominees in terms of their confirmation hearings, Pete Hegseth being one of them. We're kind of watching to see what he does with Kash Patel today because the FBI director nominee is going before his Senate vote. And I double-checked a minute ago, Senator Susan Collins is a no vote on Patel as well. So I threw a lot at you there, but a lot moving and shaking. And I want to point people to AFN.net because Fred Jackson, he just got off this show, but he's not going on break and brushing up on his hockey. He's updating our website for us to match all this stuff we're about to talk about.
Now, he's been in the Senate. I'm looking on Wikipedia, which is just as always.
He's actually mentioned in Leviticus, I
Yes.
think.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he may very well
Chapter
be.
17, 18.
Yeah.
It's in the Hebrew.
Yes.
Yes.
You can find it there. But he's been in the Senate since 1985.
That's
40
pretty much, I mean, that's
years.
my lifetime.
Yeah. Well, listen,
in the Senate.
I don't want to be unkind to Senator McConnell. He can be really ornery.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I think he certainly would be a conservative, but he probably leans more moderate than conservative. But I always will be thankful for his really very bold move in the last year of the Obama administration when he held off.
That's right.
The nomination of
Garland.
Yes. Merrick Garland. Sometimes these names take a while for me because he would have been a disastrous Supreme Court confirmation.
We saw that he was a bad attorney general.
He was a bad attorney general, and that took a lot of guts on the part of Mitch McConnell. So I will say I'm not sorry to see him go. I hope he is replaced by a true, staunch, pro-Trump conservative. But Mitch McConnell has done some good work while he was in office.
I have
the Merrick Garland nomination at the top of the list for me.
I have a bit of a statement here from McConnell. He said, quote, 7 times my fellow Kentuckians have sent me to the Senate. Every day in between, I've been humbled by the trust they've placed in me to do their business here. Representing our Commonwealth has been the honor of a lifetime. I will not seek this honor an 8th time. My current term in the Senate will be my last, he said.
All right. What else we got?
Well, I did mention, I kind of threw a lot at you there, but just to let people know, Kash Patel, the confirmation vote on him is today. So if the Lord tarries, we will find out whether or not we have a new director of the FBI. This one has been interesting to watch. Once Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got confirmed, I kind of thought, well, all these people are probably going to get confirmed. Although Democrats, including Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, are still out there saying he's going to wreak havoc at the FBI and go after enemies and whatnot. We'll still hear that after today.
Well, Tony, I'll just throw this to you.
I'm sorry.
It's going to get funner and funner if Kash Patel is confirmed.
I'm sorry. Someone talking about, he's going to go after enemies when he's when he's at the FBI. He's going to. We can't have the FBI or the DOJ being politicized and targeting political opponents.
That's never happened before.
That's never happened. Yeah, I mean, I will personally be very glad to see Kash Patel over the FBI. I think he's going to bring about much needed reforms and a refocusing of the FBI and what their chief purpose actually is, which is to investigate criminal behavior and actual bad guys, like terrorists coming over the border, and not moms complaining at parent-teacher conferences or school board meetings, or spending an inordinate amount of resources and time tracking down grandmas who were taking pictures at the Capitol on January 6th.
Right.
You've heard, I'm sure we've all heard those stories of the amount of time and effort that went into tracking down people who were even just present on January 6th. When that time and effort could have been spent tracking down terrorists and people within our own borders who mean to do us harm.
And listen, I also hope that there will be some dragging back to more constitutional parameters the amount of spying that goes on in terms of American citizens. I know the FBI is not the only ones doing that, the only governmental institution doing that, but I certainly hope Kash Patel is able to rein some of that in as well. All the stuff that happened with the FISA courts, the lying to these FISA courts, I hope there's I don't mean this in a political way, going after political enemies. I think laws were broken.
Yeah.
And I think people who broke those laws should be investigated and, if need be punished. But I certainly hope the spying on American citizens is over, although maybe that's a little naive.
I don't think you'll ever see I don't know. I lean towards pessimism when it comes to having something like the Patriot Act revoked and kind of done away with. I think that would take a tremendous amount of courage that Congress just doesn't have to restore those freedoms to U.S. citizens that were taken away. But to your point, I think having people at the head of these organizations helps kind of rein that back naturally. You know, so for instance, the FISA request. I mean, if you have someone in charge who's from the top down implementing a policy where we don't authorize FISA requests like it's candy anytime someone has something, then you can kind of claw back some of those freedoms that were probably eroded.
Yeah. All right, Ray, you got anything you want to add to the FBI, to Kash Patel?
Look, it's just going to be a better day when Kash Patel is confirmed. Going to be close, right? It's going to be close, but we understand that. I think by the end of the day, he's going to be the new director of the FBI, and it will truly be a great day if they clean out the people who need to be cleaned out, and get good men and women in the FBI who pursue their jobs according to the Constitution and not according to their political party.
That's right.
Yep. All right.
Well, President Trump has been in office 1 month today. And our friends and acquaintances over at Newsbusters and Media Research Center, they've done an analysis. This is brand new. Through the first 4 weeks of President Donald Trump's second term, the late-night comedians have told 761 jokes about Trump. By contrast, in 2021, during President Joe Biden's first 4 weeks in office, the late-night comedians told a total of 88 jokes about the new chief executive. Any surprises there that the left-wing media and these, I think, paid bullies in late-night television shows would be making fun of the president?
What are the statistics on how many of those were funny?
Well, yeah,
have those numbers also?
None of them.
None
From
of them.
Stephen Colbert, none of them. Jimmy Kimmel, maybe.
Yeah.
Listen, we're supposed to love everybody. I can't stand Stephen Colbert. I can't stand Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, I meant to say Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon, he's a little bit more lovable, seems to me. I have no idea, personally. He seems a little bit more of a lovable, rascally kind of person, although I'm sure he leans left. But Kimmel and Colbert, I can't stand them.
Yeah.
And I don't ever listen to them. I don't watch Saturday Night Live or any of those kinds of groups because every once in a while I'll see a clip from Saturday Night Live, but they haven't been funny in years.
Yeah, the last time Saturday Night Live was funny, Mitch McConnell was in his second term as a senator. And ever since then, it's been just kind of...
You may have to go all the way back to the 70s when it started. That was before even his...
They leaned... I grew up watching... Jay Leno, and Dave Letterman, who were obviously had left leanings, both personally and on the show. You knew who they favored, but at least there was some semblance of objectivity. So they would throw jokes at the other side as well.
Right.
And you got to learn to laugh at yourself, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. So, but these new late night hosts, they are just hook, line, and sinker. They're court jesters for the DNC.
Yeah.
Here's your talking points. Go out and make some jokes about it.
Listen, was it this past weekend that Tom Hanks was on
Yes.
Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
And he played a person who's a MAGA with the MAGA hat?
Right.
Yes.
Or that wasn't a rerun, right?
No, it was brand new.
No, they brought that character back.
Yeah.
Okay, the same character. All right. Now, I did not watch The Exchange He's on it's a game show.
It's like Jeopardy.
Yeah, like Jeopardy. But I did read a lot that he was mocking the average MAGA person. And I saw some posts on X talking about the fact that people like Tom Hanks. Now, he's probably worth $1 billion. I don't know how much he's actually worth, but Brent Creeley, you looking that up? All right, he's going to look that up. But he's made his money off everybody going to his movies, some of which were just unbelievable, just amazing. An excellent actor. And then when you don't need them anymore to kind of turn your back on those people and mock them, I just think speaks to the character of the person. And my estimation of Tom Hanks, it had started going down rapidly over the last, since Trump's first administration, but without even watching the Saturday Night Live thing this past weekend, I guess I'll eventually go back, but I hate to torment myself. What'd you find out, Brent?
One website says 400 million and the other one says 450 million.
Oh, that's it?
So, yeah.
All right. Whoa, what a slacker.
Yeah.
Let's go with 450. Give him that extra 50 million.
Approximately.
As Tim always says, he has no trouble paying his mortgage. Like someone at that level is paying a mortgage. They just pay cash.
Sweating the payment every month. I'm still in the grace period.
Yeah, Tom Hanks.
Rita,
Hanks.
pay the mortgage.
I'll bet he can pay anytime he goes to
the
Chili's.
rent is due. I've got to go do some lines for Toy Story 5, honey.
Yeah.
Where the check won't clear.
All right, what else we got?
Okay. I saw this yesterday, and I thought it was a satirical story. But I did an investigative analysis, and by that I mean a 5-minute Google search. And I found various news articles, including reputable, and I use that term loosely, sources such as CBS News. KFC, for those that haven't heard, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, is moving its corporate headquarters from Kentucky to Texas, which is joining the list of various corporations moving corporate headquarters from states, many of them blue states, very liberal areas, to more red areas such as Texas. They're still going to maintain some properties and offices and whatnot in the great state of Kentucky. But Kentucky Fried Chicken, again, is moving to Texas. It's not going to become TFC, but it does appear to be a real thing. And as we were talking about in the meeting before the show, go back to last year, In-N-Out Burger said it was going to be opening a headquarters in Franklin, Tennessee, in the Nashville area. Moving, now they're still going to have some stuff out in California where In-N-Out is based, but you got two big companies moving.
All right. Now we had this discussion. First of all, it is a little strange for KFC to move Kentucky Fried Chicken to move its headquarters to Texas, but obviously it's not going to change anything.
Does Colonel Sanders even know about this?
I don't think so.
He's rolling over in his secret blend of herbs and spices.
He's actually retiring from the Senate in 2026. So
yeah, that's right. All right, so Ray, we started this discussion in our story meeting this morning. Knowing that Chris was going to bring up the In-N-Out Burger thing, and you and I had a very friendly little, difference of opinion because you asked me about In-N-Out, and you like it. I'm going to get your take here in just a second. I've only had In-N-Out Burger one time. That was in California. I was out in California with a team. We were working on a video. This is way back in 2008 on the Proposition 8 marriage amendment, and we produced a fine little video on that in favor of traditional marriage. And part of the group that went, the film team here from AFA, they said, you got to eat at In-N-Out Burger. So we did that, and I thought, well, it's good. I mean, it's fine. I just don't know what all the excitement was about. But now, Ray, you're a huge fan, and you mentioned something. So if this starts, because this is going to be now their effort to spread east of the Mississippi.
Yes.
Okay. Ray, talk a little about what did you say that you can, because you can get, there's a secret menu.
There's a secret menu.
Talk about this.
At In-N-Out. It's West Coast based. That's where they started and started by Christians, by the way. They got little Bible verses on their, the bottom of their
drink cups.
Their drink cups and all that stuff. And now they're They're in Dallas already. They're going to be across the South, coming to your neighborhood.
Kind of like
soon.
fire ants, right? When they
They're coming across the country. Well, and Ed, let me just say this: In-N-Out Burger is wonderful. Five Guys is wonderful. To me, Five Guys fries like one of the best things in the world. But Ed, when they come, and they are coming, they'll come to Memphis. They'll come down I-22. They'll hit Tupelo eventually, I'll bet. And when they do, Ed, here's what you do. You go in, and you will not see this on the menu. Order yourself a double animal style.
All right. Now, I told you not to tell me this morning what that was. I wanted to hear it when our listeners heard it. What is a double animal style burger?
All right. You get yourself a double cheeseburger. When you say animal style, which is not, generally speaking, on the menu there, at least publicly, they'll put some grilled onions on top, put a little mustard on that top layer there. Then they pour on the animal-style sauce, which looks like Thousand Island dressing, and it's some kind of super recipe. When they pour that on top of that top layer there, and then they put the bun on top of it, then you get you, Fred, Ed, get you. That's good Southern. Yeah. Get you some fries, and tell them you want the fries animal style. And they'll pour that animal style, I'm going to call it gravy dressing, whatever you want. Pour it on the fries. You're going to need a roll of paper, okay? Because it's a messy meal. But it will cure you of the Whopper and the Big Mac. You'll never go back. Once you have the double animal style at In-N-Out, that's what I wish I was having for lunch today.
Oh, man. That sounds amazing. Well, look, okay, so I'm willing to give – we're 17 years down the road. I've grown a lot, Ray, as a person. Okay, so I guess it's time to give In-N-Out Burger a second chance.
Give them a second shot.
Go double animal style.
Animal style. You won't regret
After the show, I will go check out a van, and we'll get on I-40 and head west.
Then head west.
Great American. We'll do the show live tomorrow. Y'all can call in for trivia.
All right.
Brent is buying.
You got anything to close us out? I hope
do.
So, because we got 2 minutes left.
I do. Yesterday, author and film producer Stephen Kendrick, one half of the Kendrick Brothers production film, was here on campus at American Family Radio, and I had the opportunity to sit down with him. This is the guy who has helped make films like The Forge, War Room, Courageous, Facing the Giants. Great films that are totally rewatchable if you haven't watched them in a while. But I had a question for him, and it was this. What is next for you and your brother? Clip 10.
We're praying now about the next projects. We've got 3 that are in the prayer incubator. We've already had a prayer retreat asking the Lord for clarity and direction. One of them is an episodic, which we've never done before. One of them is to reshoot a movie in a foreign language and use it to train up a film group in another country to make Christian films in that country. And then we're actually looking at a biblical story. We've never done that before either. We've been impressed with The Chosen and what we've seen modern day, a retelling of biblical stories. But we really want to honor the scriptures. You know, we fear the Lord, and we want to honor and handle his word well. But prayer is the foundation for everything that we do. Please pray for us. Pray for the Kendrick brothers and ask the Lord to give us clarity, open doors, provision. We want to take the gospel to the nations. We want to introduce people in a loving relationship with Christ and to follow him in his word.
Tony and Ray, how familiar are you guys? Tony, I think you've seen some of these movies growing up.
Oh, yeah. I've seen
Ray,
most of them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what do you got? The impact of entertainment from a Christian perspective can be extremely powerful. Mm-hmm. In the last last minute now, Ray, what do you think about the power of film?
Look, I am old enough to remember when you said Christian movie and people would go, oh no.
Yes.
Right? Because in the old days, cheesy. There's nothing cheesy about what the Kendrick brothers are doing. They're right on the cutting edge of Christian filmmaking. Wish them every success in what they're doing.
Tony, any last thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Any of those paths that they choose to take sound exciting to me. I think when handled respectfully, obviously, and with reverence to God's word, there are so many stories that could, if told with modern day filmmaking and with the right budget and the right talent could just be so impactful to believers, but also unbelievers.
Amen. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Ray, thank you, sir.
You bet.
KeepBelieving.com. Folks, check that out. Even if you have missed the start of the Bible bus, you can catch it at the local KFC and get on that Bible bus and read the Bible along with Ray. Folks, that's all the time we have. Don't forget, tomorrow's Trivia Friday. We'll hope you join us.